Let me start this episode by asking you a question. What do you think is the most important quality of a player that coaches look for when trying to fill a spot on a top-tier professional esports roster? Think about it for a second. Often people think of skill or experience or a history of proven success, and while these are all incredibly important things that are looked at, the single most important deciding factor is their mindset. So in this episode, we'll be starting our series on mindset by looking at why it is so important and highly valued by pro teams, as well as how you can go about managing and improving yours to be like a pro's. Welcome to Esports Academy, a podcast and video series where I teach you how to become a pro. We'll be using current research from sports and performance psychology to optimize the road to success, allowing you to unlock your true potential and improve the fastest. You've probably often heard that a good mindset is really important for performing well, being a good player, and being able to improve, but often it seems kind of artificial and cheesy. Like, if you keep a good attitude and don't flame your teammates, you're more likely to win the game. Like, yes, thank you, Einstein, what a profound insight. Obviously that's helpful, but it's not like changing your mindset will magically increase your skill enough to win most of these tilting ranked games anyways. This is why I find it helpful to take what we call a scientific reductionist approach to looking at mindset, as it helps highlight why it actually is one of the most important things to master. So let's look at mindset in the bigger picture for a second. Essentially, you're currently not the player that you want to be. You need to learn and grow as a player and overall improve until you can reach your desired level of performance. That's the main goal, learning and improvement. But scientifically speaking, what is learning? What does it look like? Well, essentially, if we reduce it down to its most basic components, learning is simply creating new connections in your brain, strengthening current ones, and maybe even disrupting previous connections. Basically, learning involves physiological changes taking place in your brain. How does your brain make these changes? Well, as it receives information, it naturally makes these connections, the speed and strength of which depends on various factors, such as how active the brain is at the time, the balance of chemicals, and how fast it can send electrical signals across neurons. Now, this is where mindset comes in, because all of these various factors can be summarized as the brain's environment, sort of what the brain's weather is currently like. And mindset is super impactful at changing that environment, that weather. So essentially, by simply changing the way that you're thinking, you can change, for example, how active certain parts of your brain are and strengthen its ability to create connections. You can, by thinking differently, have a significant impact on your ability to learn and improve. And you can, by thinking differently, reach your goal much faster. So what does a good mindset actually look like though? Is it just not flaming your teammates in ranked? Well, there's a lot of research done on mindset, and there are various different features that seem good and theories that have proven success, but one of the simplest and most impactful theories recently refers to a fixed versus a growth mindset. Let's do a little experiment on you to see which of these camps you fall into. I'm going to list a few features or traits of a person, and I want you to, after each one, just quickly think to yourself, where does this come from? How does a person obtain this? Ready? First, being a football superstar like Ronaldo. How about being really funny and always able to get a laugh, or being the life of the party? How about being someone who really cares about the environment and conservation? Someone with a fixed mindset would look at these things as being simply natural traits of a person. A football superstar is born with the talent allowing them to reach that level. Some people are just naturally funny or the life of the party, and others aren't. Some people enjoy planting trees and going on hikes because they enjoy and care about nature and preserving it. These people are simply born that way, and that's why they are the way that they are. But this way of thinking is simply wrong. Think about it. Is there a gene for being funny or caring about the environment? As far as we know, no. All of these features and traits are acquired mostly through personal experience and not any sort of genetic basis. Take being funny, for example. When you're young and learn what a joke is, you try to make some. The responses that you get are going to be anywhere from disinterest and eye rolls to genuine hearty laughter. In a way, humans are pretty simple. If we get positive feedback for doing something, we're going to keep doing it. So the kids that receive lots of laughter and other positive responses will think, hey, this is fun, and will keep making jokes and trying to get people to laugh. They'll gain experience as they do it, learning how to make people laugh more, and start being labeled as someone who is funny. It then becomes part of their personality and continues to grow. A child that receives disinterest and silence, on the other hand, will quickly stop telling jokes because it's not fun. They're not getting positive responses. They will think, guess I'm not funny, and rarely make jokes anymore. They won't develop the experiences of trying to be funny and will live up to that expectation of not being a funny person. The child's natural funniness only impacted how good their jokes were at the start, but even then the responses they receive will mostly be dependent on the personalities of those around them and not the jokes themselves. Really, being a funny person, or being someone who cares about the environment and conservation, or even being a pro football player are all far more affected by one's lived experiences than anything innate or genetic. Another way to think of it is that you could, theoretically, become the life of the party if you sat down and practiced. You could practice your small talk and storytelling, learn a bunch of party tricks, become a beer pong master, and learn some sweet-ass dance moves. There's nothing stopping you except for society's standards of saying, who the hell practices to be more fun at parties? What a weirdo. People are only the life of the party because they have experience in the skills required to be the life of the party, and you could gain those skills with experience or practice. That is what a growth mindset is, realizing that everything is attainable for you given you put the hard work and effort in to attain it. You could become an amazing football player if you practiced every day. If you're over the age of 10 or have a physical disability, probably not a Ronaldo level superstar, but a good football player nonetheless. You could become someone who is always the life of the party, or someone who can always get a laugh. You could become a professional esports athlete if you're willing to devote your life to it. There's nothing stopping you except yourself. Now, it would be irresponsible of me to leave it at that, because while that is a helpful way to think and exemplifies the growth mindset, it's not completely true either. In reality, it's a little bit of both. We covered this in the first episode, but while for most things, especially mastering skills, experience plays a much larger role in success, there are still other factors out of your control at play. In our case of becoming an esports pro, things like age of acquisition, luck, and especially privilege are all very important factors. But really, that's sort of besides the point. A growth mindset is about recognizing the role of experience, that nothing is perfectly natural, and that the main thing stopping you from becoming better at your game is your own limits to how much you can practice and grow. So at this point, you can probably see how having a growth mindset may be more helpful than a fixed mindset when looking to improve or get better at something. Most basically, even for motivation, it will be easier to aim for the top if you actually believe you can get there. But more than this, even the very physiology of our brain benefits from having a growth mindset. Remember, your ultimate goal is to learn and improve, to get better at your game. Research has shown that people who have this growth mindset and are focused on improvement have brains that become very active when receiving information about how to do better or when they are learning. A more active brain allows for more and stronger connections to be made, increasing the amount of learning and improving that happens. The brain is essentially set up to process lessons and learn from them. Those with a more fixed mindset, on the other hand, have significantly less brain activity when receiving information that would help them learn, instead getting more active when they're being evaluated. This in turn often makes them more focused on acting to perform well rather than to learn, and causes misdirection during important learning situations, such as playing the blame game when not performing well. But even more than this, it's not only your brain that's set up better for learning. We'll cover this more in a later episode, but the environment that you find yourself in is also heavily benefited by a growth mindset. For example, learning happens the best when you're putting yourself out there, taking risks and challenging yourself. A fixed mindset doesn't allow you to do these things because you'll be too worried about and focused on failure. But a growth mindset embraces and encourages putting yourself out there because you're simply focused on learning. It allows you to strive for larger, further away goals with less stress and anxiety, and approach things with more enjoyment, embracing the learning process. So by focusing on growth and realizing that reaching high levels is more about the time and effort you spend, you can set up your brain and environment to be able to learn better and help you reach your goals faster. Now, while this is all well and good, how does one actually bring about a growth mindset? Well, for things like mindset, unfortunately, there is no how or try, there is just do. You already know what a growth mindset looks like as we just went over it, so all there is left is to put it into practice. Really, a lot of it is about monitoring your self-talk. For example, if you're watching the Pro League and see some insane plays or people hit shots you didn't think were possible, it's about saying to yourself, I can't do that yet. Often we think to ourselves, wow, I can't do that, or I could never do that. So it's important to catch yourself and add the yet. I can't do this yet, but I have the potential to down the road. Make sure to remind yourself often, like before you practice, why you are practicing. Remember that you're only doing this to learn and to improve, and that winning and performing well really don't matter as long as you're pulling out important lessons from them and bettering yourself for the next time. Often our self-talk shifts to the most negative when we're not seeing the results of our hard work, when it feels like we're getting nowhere and keep making the same mistakes. But it's important to remember that naturally through the process of learning, you have a lot of different things to learn, and some are simply going to take longer than others. Sometimes our brain has already pre-learned something that conflicts with our current learning goal without us even being aware of it. And so it takes a long time for us to unlearn that old lesson and replace it with something new. Another thing that is really important when it comes to managing your mindset to be more growth oriented is to set good goals. If you remember from episode 2, we talked about goal setting and how you can set good ones. One of the main points is to make sure that your goals are oriented towards your personal mastery of skills and not towards performance. If you go into a session with a goal of performance, your mind will follow and will be results oriented. But if you go into a session with a goal of personal mastery, your mind will follow and be focused on learning and growth. Really, creating and managing a growth mindset is all about constantly reminding yourself to put learning first, because that's all that really matters. Okay, we talked a lot about mindset in this episode, so let's quickly recap. First, remember that mindset is one of, if not the most important thing for you to master in order to become a pro. It can literally change the physiology of our brain to help us learn and improve faster. One of the best mindsets to do this is a growth mindset, which realizes that everything comes from personal experience and practice, and that you can achieve almost anything with enough hard work. Creating and managing this growth mindset is all about reminding yourself of this lesson and constantly focusing your attention on improving. If you can master this mindset, not only will you unlock your greatest learning potential, but will also be one large step forward to becoming a full-fledged pro. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this episode of Esports Academy. If you enjoyed this one, chances are you'll really like our first episode too if you haven't checked that one out yet, as well as the next episode, which will focus more on mindset, looking at challenge, setbacks, and failure. So if you don't want to miss that or any future episodes, make sure to follow or subscribe or whatever you do on your platform of choice, and stay connected through our Discord server. You can find the link in the podcast description. That's all for this episode. Make sure you stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.